Greetings and welcome to Beatles Stuffology, where two old friends sit about and talk BS, Beatles stuff, on a track-by-track basis, pretty much for the sake of it. My name is McQuarrie, and I'm here with my co-host Andrew Deacon. Say hi, Andrew.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm a bit grumpy this week, but I will try and find some positivity in the song that we are covering. How are you doing this week?
Well, I'm doing okay, but I did have to deal with a situation this morning, which I'm pretty sure that George Martin, in recording the Beatles, didn't have to put up with when the cat brought in a bird, just as I was getting ready to start to record, and I thought I'd have to bury this poor dead bird. When I say bury, I mean put in a bag in the bin, and went off to get the box, and then came back, and the bird had gone. It had not flown at that stage. It had just hidden behind the sofa to get away from the cat, having quite cannily played dead for a period of time. So there you go. The bird had not flown, nor had sung. So the Beatles references are fairly limited, nor was it a blackbird. So
Okay.
yeah, but it has now gone into the wider world to be run over by a car, eaten by another cat, or some bigger bird.
Well, we sure are keeping the positivity flowing this week. Excellent. I'm sure cleverer people than us could manage to work in lots of unnecessary song titles there, but let's not bother and just crack on with When I Get Home. So we carry on through side two of A Hard Day's Night with a song that I cannot describe in any other way other than with the word filler. What do you think of it, though?
Filler. I thought when playing my JG McQuarrie bingo, I thought you might have gone for peppy or jaunty, but I wasn't going for filler. I kind of see what you mean, but there's also something quite fun about it in a lightweight kind of way. You sort of get the feeling that they're almost on the beach at this stage, aren't they? Because this was the last thing they recorded for the album, the start of June 1964. No doubt looking forward to their arduous tour ahead. And you can just sort of feel that there is that end of term feel, that perhaps they'd brought in board games, wearing their own clothes. Maybe they were even going to have a disco in the afternoon, and just having whatever fun they could possibly have. Because yeah, although it's slight filler, if you will, it is also at least upbeat and energetic. We'll give them that. Surely you'll give them that.
I mean, it's definitely upbeat and energetic. There's no doubt about this. It's very
You're going to say filler
I don't
again,
know.
aren't you?
I was fighting the urge to concede the pep, but I don't think I'm going to. I think it's a little bit too raw to describe it as peppy. It's got quite a raw vocal from Lennon on it, and that slight abrasiveness, I feel, means that this one doesn't earn a pep. So for everyone who had pep in their bingo cards, I'm sorry, no house for you today. But I mean, it's fine. It's not a bad song. It clips along at a fair old rate. I mean, it's not a classic for the ages, but that's fine. It keeps itself amused. It's only a little over 2 minutes, and it's got the kind of, that this kind of very bluesy feel to it. I think one of the things that's increasingly obvious is that, we've mentioned before in the podcast about, McCartney coming up with Can't Buy Me Love, and one of Lennon's reactions to that was basically to go away and write the bulk of this album. But I think one of the things that becomes increasingly clear as we go through it is that a lot of the songs that he then went away and wrote are kind of similar. This is another song which is based around seventh, so it's mostly A seventh, D seventh, G seventh, and then there's a bit of A minor, C and F, and that's it. It's kind of similar to a lot of songs. It is, as we discussed in the previous episode, and I'm very proud of myself for actually remembering this to throw in a link. It is a horizontal construction, and that's fine. But yeah, that's why I describe it as a little bit filler. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just a bit kind of samey when you compare it to quite a few songs in the album.
So I like the intro, especially the whoa, I think that's good and that works. That sort of leap into falsetto. I think when they do it, let's see, one, two, three, four times in a 2 and a bit minute song, you could argue that it's either one of those things that you like or really starts to grate on you. It's a nice device. It works at the start as an introduction, but then when it becomes clear that they've obviously had the conversation in the studio and say, well, we're not sure how to start this. And George Martin probably presses the button on the intercom from the booth saying, boys, why don't we do that thing where we stick the chorus, at the start of the song. Oh, okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. Because like we haven't done that 33 times already so far. That's when it can start to grate. So there's nice things in it. But it does feel a little bit slight, choppy. I mean, there is that jauntiness to it, but you wouldn't necessarily say there's like a flowing rhythm to it. It feels the guitars feel a bit choppy as well, don't they? So it's fine, and I think when it comes to it as well, you can sort of tell. I think how much time was spent on it from the lyrics because they are. I mean, it's just chucking in a few kind of cliches as and when, isn't it? It is one of those ones where you don't feel as though they're worth spending a huge amount of time on individually, perhaps within the sort of the greater context to have a think about the whole, as it were, to see what kind of patterns there are. But that whole sense of gonna see my baby today. I got a whole lot of things I gotta say. It's fine. I mean, I suppose at best we could have a conversation about Americanisms because there's lots of woes and gunners and gotters and come-ons. But is that a conversation that you want to have?
I'm not sure that this is a song which quite manages to justify that. Actually, funnily enough, I think it might be a conversation we have in the next episode when we're talking about you can't do that. But I think for this one, I mean, yes, but I agree with you. They're kind of they're sort of stock phrases which are just getting thrown out now. It will be familiar to the audience. It will be familiar to the band, and it gets things going. Although one small thing to say in its favor, it's not every song that can work in the word trivialities into its lyric without it sounding slightly awkward. But actually, it kind of fits quite nicely in this. So a little
Well,
bit of kudos there.
there
But yeah,
is
beyond that,
there
I mean,
is.
it's
Oh, I was just going to say, apologies, listener, for the classic professionalism there. There's one line in particular that really screams, didn't have a clue and just needed to put something in quickly before they recorded it. And that's, I'm going to love her till the cows come home.
that well-known expression.
Well, there is, funny enough, there is something similar in, I think I'll Cry Instead as well, where he does talk about, excuse me, I've got a chip on a shoulder that's bigger than my feet. But at least you get the thing he's trying to be humorous there, albeit within a sort of a dark tone. Whereas on this one, you just sort of think, I need a line. Somebody give me a line. And if I was being particularly mean, I'd say this is probably one that someone just shouted at him. Said, why don't you do it like this? Go, fine, it scans, I'll stick it in.
The sad thing is that it's got that line in it, but this song doesn't have a cowbell on it. I mean, if ever there was an opportunity screaming for like a merging of lyric and musicality, I mean, that's where you want to get your cowbell in, surely.
Well, I suppose the other thing, lyrically that I mean, if we're not going to sort of talk about the come on, which is referencing themselves perhaps, but also kind of very much an Elvis sort of thing, and we're not going to sort of get into all of that. I suppose then we could talk about the one of the themes that does sort of run through a fair bit of Lennon's writing at this point, which is about coming and going. About being away from a girl and coming back to a girl, and then going away again and coming back, and he's walking out the door in this. He's also coming home, and he's thinking about the things he's going to say when I get home, but then I'm going to love her more till I walk out that door. And I suspect that door just happened to rhyme with more, but there is that coming and going. And that's also something that seems to be in, again, things like I'll cry instead as well. And I suppose to an extent, as we'll talk about with things like you can't do that. And of course, hard day's night. But when I get home to you, I know the things that I'll do. So there's that sense of hey, if you wanted to get deep, should we get deep for a minute? We could get deep. Let's get all Freudian
Sure.
and talk about separation anxiety. Because you know what? I bet no one's ever thought of Lennon as having separation anxiety ever before. I'm sure that's a completely original thought, isn't it?
Well, so sure, I'm bold. This is the content we come here for. We're providing the kind of insight nobody else could ever reach for in a million years. It's interesting because we've mentioned a couple of times about songs in this album which could be interpreted as being autobiographical or semi-autobiographical, but there's no real, I don't think, sense that this one is. If you want to talk about separation anxiety, I mean, obviously Cynthia's at home with Julian at this point. He's off traveling the world, so of course there's going to be plenty of coming and going. It's natural that that's going to be something which is on his mind. But there's no real sense that this is actually about anything other than, stock phrases which are being put together. I don't think that this lyric has enough in it that it could really be pushed in any kind of direction, unless you want to suggest that he's maybe doing it subconsciously. That it's
Conscious,
possible,
isn't
I
it? Yeah,
guess.
reaching. Do you not remember your degree, man? He's subconsciously reaching for those things that have affected him, and deep down, maybe the whole lot of things he's got to tell her. He's got to tell his mother, maybe. Anyway, I know that's not the
Maybe.
case. I know it's a stretch, but it's just an interesting thought that it's a little bit like I think was it Crowded House, one of those bands. I think Neil Finn. There was an album where he had lots of references to kitchens, for example. Things ain't cooking in my kitchen. Was it Woodface and REM's Document has lots of references to fire. So I mean, subconsciously, a writer can be plucking similar things together. It doesn't necessarily have to mean anything. It could just maybe mean that they haven't got a particularly great imagination at that stage because they're so quiet, so tired, and in such a rush and absolutely high on whatever drugs they're taking. That's more of a reference to Lennon than Neil Finn or Michael Stipe, by the way. I should just point out as they're alive.
Important clarification there. Yeah. Do I not remember my degree? I barely remember what decade I did my degree in. Never mind what I was on the actual course at this stage. We'll gloss over that for the time being. Yeah, I suppose so. And I mean, it's a difficult one with Lennon because he spent so long intentionally obfuscating his real meaning that anything that comes through, whether it's subconscious or not, is always open to interpretation. But again, I just feel that there's so little in the lyric here. I agree with what you said earlier on when you were talking about this feeling like it was like an end of term kind of song. It feels like, all right, we're done with it. Walk out the door. Let's go and have a nice summer holiday. Although not the Cliff Richard variety. And because you got to draw the line somewhere. And I think that's true, and I think that's true musically, and it's definitely true lyrically. It's just it's the last exam paper that you need to get through, so you write something a little bit more lighthearted or a little bit less kind of demanding than the other ones. I think this song probably suffers a little bit from sequencing as well when it comes to the lyric as well, because we've just covered things we said today. And when we were talking about that in that episode, we praising this kind of like new perspective and the idea of kind of like future nostalgia, and it's by the standards of 1964 Beatles, it's pretty lyrically sophisticated. And then you kind of run smack into this, which is pretty much the polar opposite. It's just a few words hither and thither upon the page, and so it probably doesn't really benefit from its sequencing place either.
Well, I think I'm gonna not contradict, but I've got a funny feeling that the future nostalgia thing was we filed under things that everybody already knows about, so we're not really going to talk about. But I've got a funny feeling that even with things we said today, it kind of has that veneer of sophistication. But actually, when you stab at it a little bit, you realise that it's just a bunch of words that don't really make a huge amount of sense. So in that respect, I'm going to, and dear listener, gasp in horror, defend Lennon here, because
Agree.
at least this is coherent nonsense. It's a theme, it's an idea, it's consistent in its banality.
Okay, well, that's an approach. I think I would go the other way and say if things we said today have has a of veneer of respectability or veneer of quality, at least it has a veneer, which is more than can be said for this. But I don't want to be too hard on this because again, like it's just a bouncy little song. I managed to avoid pep and jaunty. It's just a bouncy little song, which, and it fulfills its function. That's fine. It doesn't really need anything other than shuffle the deck of random Americanisms. Oh, here we are. We've got a lyric. Right, come on, let's go down the pub. And that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah, it's stick this in um oh, I don't know, Herman's Hermits catalogue. It's another one of our constant themes, isn't it? And it would be the best song they ever recorded. So
Yeah,
it's that whole problem of sticking it on the same album as Things We Said Today and I Should Have Known Better and I Love Her. And of course, it's not going to match up to that, but it doesn't mean it's not perfectly decent in its own right. And I think that's one of the things that we constantly need to laud the Beatles for. The standards are so high, and at least as well, it doesn't drag.
it definitely doesn't drag.
Apart from the whoa 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 whoa, but you take that out, and then that's going to get it down to about 1 minute 20. But it's got that good pace to it that just sort of drives it along, and before you know it, you're through and ready for the amazing guitar intro that opens with You Can't Do That. But let's not get onto that just yet.
No, well, and I think the music side of things needs to be discussed as well, and it is it's a pretty tightly put together little song. If everybody's like doing the thing that they do well, which doesn't sound like it's the most remarkable observation in the world because it's not. But like everybody's like doing the thing they need to do. It's another example of nobody's showing off. It's they're doing the right things for the song, and I mean none of it is it's not a classic McCartney bass line. It's not a brilliant Ringo outing, but it's right for the song. They all do the things that they need to do, and that's fine. I mean, I quite like the falsetto intro. I do kind of want to praise that a little bit more because I do think that's an interesting way of starting the song, and I think the tight vocals on that introduction are probably the best moment of the song. Which I don't mean to sound as pejorative as it probably comes across. The rest of the song is rubbish, I imply, which is not what I'm trying to say. But it's just it's a really strong intro, and I know it's the same. Yeah, like you mentioned, it's the same trick that they've done many times before. Just start with the chorus, but the way that it starts kind of high and then kind of falls down into the verse like that is nice. It works well, and we've got Paul and George on the harmonies, and it's I mean it's a job of work, but it's doing a good job of work.
Yeah, I suppose that's one of the other things that we need to remember is we're still in the early days of recording this kind of music, and actually, yeah, fast forward another 6 or 7 years, and you wouldn't be starting songs in this way. In fact, fast forward another 2 or 3 years, and you're not starting songs in this way. Fairly soon, as the album becomes much more of a product and a polished product, length over the number of songs becomes more important, and introduction, setting the mood through instrumentation and building towards the start of the vocal coming in becomes much more of a thing. So the fact that the Beatles are still doing this crashing, introduction through singing a key part of the song is fantastic. And you can forward on even to a couple of albums time with one of the best examples of it with Help. All you think of in the main is that introduction, and just that explosion of the word help as this sort of major appeal. So yeah, it's fine. I like it. If you're good at something, keep doing it. Why not? I haven't got a problem with that. Like us in this podcast, just keep doing it regardless of whether or not anyone is listening.
Somebody's listening. Somebody's listening. I mean, not a lot of someone's, but someone's listening. So let's not patronize the small audience we've got, eh?
No, that's fine. That's fine. And yeah, well, as long as they keep downloading, they might not make it all the way through the episode, so that's fine. So they might not even hear this. But actually,
Yeah,
no.
well, that's fair enough.
We should say it's nice that people are joining us with the new episodes, but actually it is encouraging to see that people are going back through previous episodes. So if you are doing that, and you want to let us know what you think, perhaps even let us know which songs we got right, which songs you profoundly disagree with our view of as well, then that could be an opportunity for you to get in touch. And does it sound like I'm stalling, despite the fact that this could be our shortest episode ever?
It does slightly sound like you're stalling, but it does also give me a perfect opportunity to lead into our "You Can Really Get a Hold of Us" section, which we didn't do at the top of the show because that's, again, the kind of professionalism that you've come to expect from this podcast. Oh, shall we just score it, and then we'll do that, and then that's us done, so we don't really have anything else to say about this song?
It's pretty standard. It's good fare, but it's standard fare. And so, on current rating system, it's your classic 6 out of 10. Thank you very much. Job done. Very much enjoyed it.
Lovely. I think I'm hovering between 5.5 and 6. I should just go for 6, right? Just so that I don't.
I don't know why you're overthinking it. You've got 10 choices, or unless of course we're counting 0 as an option. It's obviously not going to be 10, 9,
well,
8.
what are you going to rate Mr. Moonlight?
On current scoring, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's not 7, 8, 9, 10. So, your choices are limited. We're going to have an amnesty episode at some point, so you can change your mind. So, first number that comes into your head on 3, 2, 1, go.
6. I'll call it 6 and we'll leave it there. Excellent. Right. Well, you really can get a hold of us. You can contact us by email. We are BeatlesStuffology@gmail.com. We are on Twitter @Beatles_ology. And you can find more of my blog or more of my writings at my blog, I should say. God, how many times have I read this out? Anyway, never mind. www.gmcquarrie.scot. And you can read some of Andrew's writing at www.stuffology.co.uk. Please also check out my other podcast, which is every bit as professional and as well informed as this one, Talking Trek to You, where a noob and an expert go through the original Star Trek series episode by episode. Please like, rate, and review us on whatever podcatcher you're using so that more people can find the show. Next episode, we carry on with the second last song on A Hard Day's Night, which means You Can't Do That. And as always, we hope you're going to join us for it. But until then, keep listening.